Typical of the campaigns that are springing up all over the country is one being organised by the Northampton Disabled Drivers Association. After a tentative start collecting signatures on street corners, the organisers have been overwhelmed by the extent of public support. Already they have in excess of 18,000 names. Arthur Davis and Elizabeth Furnell, who, under the government's present proposals, will be without a vehicle when their trikes wear out, explain what the implications of that will be for their lives.
As a working man, the first thing I have to consider is my employment. So no vehicle, no work. It would not only affect me, it would affect my family, my friends, my social life. It'd put the clock back virtually 40 years.
It would be virtually losing my life, I suppose, one could put it like that. I even go further than say that my tricycle and my crutches are my most valuable possessions, because without either I would be immobile. I would be, well, stuck in the house. Well, I couldn't even move from a chair, of course, if I hadn't got my crutches. But as a housewife, it would mean that I would have to have extra help if I hadn't got my tricycle. I would have to have help with the shopping. I couldn't carry on my life as it is today, which is very full.
Disabled drivers like Arthur Davis are sceptical of the government's argument that a cash mobility allowance will be any replacement for their trikes.
Money just won't compensate. No weekly sum of money will compensate me for taking away my vehicle, whether it be 5, 10, 20 or 30 pound a week. I would need at least 15 to 20 pound a week for taxes to get me to work, because I have a position at work where I'm a stock controller, and to pop round to the store when I want to make a spot check, I just get into my vehicle and pop round. So I feel sure that no government or anybody else would say, Arthur, just phone up a local taxi proprietor because I want to go from the office round to the store, or to the toilet for that matter. Well, I've got a perfectly good accessible toilet which is available for me. It's a little bit too far for me to walk, so for convenience sake I'll get into my tricycle and go to the toilet. So would anybody be prepared for me to phone up the local taxi proprietor to say, send a taxi up to my office to take me to the toilet, wait while I'll either sit down or stand up, take me back to the office, and this would be twice a day, 5 times a week, and that is besides going to work and back twice a day, and that would cost somewhere around about £20.
Arthur Davis and Elizabeth Furnell are also unimpressed by arguments about the trike's lack of safety. Indeed, their view, despite the evidence, is exactly the opposite.
Personally, I have never felt that my tricycle isn't safe. Of course, if you're in a high wind, well, one has to slacken speed. I mean, you drive according to the weather conditions. But I would like to say this, that in all fairness, I mean, I feel safer in my tricycle in a high wind than I do on my crutches. And also when it's wet or icy, once I have got to my tricycle, I feel as safe as houses, and I feel as competent as any other driver on the road. In fact, I forget that I'm disabled. I forget that I'm driving a trike. Whether that's a good idea or not, I don't know. But to me, my tricycle is my life, and well, I just feel that it is as safe as I am.
In Northampton, the disabled drivers have enlisted Tory MP Michael Morris to their cause. He now intends, in common with many other MPs of all parties, to pursue the matter at Westminster.
Well, I'm asking them to have another look at it. You see, what the government has said is that they're going to give a mobility allowance to all disabled people. That's a very good thing, but not at the expense of confining those who've already got vehicles and taking it away from them, because that means that some of them will lose their jobs, they'll lose their mobility, and to use a phrase that some of them put to me, the government's taking away their legs.
But you see, I mean, surely a mobility allowance is fairer in the long term because it can be given to those who can drive as well as those who, because of their disabilities, could never ever drive a vehicle like this, or indeed any other vehicle.
Well, it's a bit of an equality of deprivation, you see. People who already got a vehicle are probably doing a job. Several of them, there are many of them, in fact, in this town, doing a good full day's work. There are others who, in fact, have got children to look after, and they've got to go out in their trikes and look after themselves, and they're far less of a charge on society by looking after themselves and playing a full role in society, taking their part on committees and all the life of Northampton. And that's what's so important. And we must not, in fact, go backwards on this issue.
When I put the argument about the trike's safety to Mr. Morris, he offered to road test the vehicle and give us his comments.
Well, I'm driving this vehicle now. Pretty fruity engine, nice response for the accelerator. Similar to an accelerator to the one you get on a motorised lawnmowers. I'm coming up now to the exit, looking to my right and my left and right again. Very convenient indicator, all clear. And off we go up the road now. Very nice response to the acceleration. Really quite stable on the whole, I must say. There's a lot of talk about instability, but I suppose that if you went absolutely mad with any three-wheeler, like the old Morgan three-wheelers, you could tip them over, but as far as I can see, it seems pretty stable. Good visibility all round, which is, of course, enormously important. It says in front of me that we've got a running-in speed of 40 and a maximum of 50. I would have thought that was perfectly reasonable, although we're in a built-up area here. I think the speedo's a bit optimistic when it reads up to 80. But this car's no more noisy than my own, I think, which isn't a very modern model. Very comfortable driving position, and I must say you're looking down on the road, which is very helpful indeed. I think the key thing about this campaign is that it's an all-party campaign, and it's occurred from the grassroots. All of us, or rather a large number of MPs, have had representations from their disabled people. A number of them, like me, have taken the trouble to come down and talk to them, and I think one or two of us have had a chance to drive. And I think the thing we find incredible is that someone like Alf Morris, the minister, who's got a very good reputation in dealing with the disabled, should have been shown such lack of understanding.
Alf Morris has been the Minister for the Disabled since 1974. As a backbench MP, he promoted the Chronically Sick and Disabled Persons Act. Yet, nevertheless, he now finds himself the target for campaigns like the one building up in Northampton. So I asked him why the government had decided to phase out the issue of invalid trikes over the next 5 years.
There's been criticism, as you know, of the safety factor. Again, people have said that the vehicle is antisocial as a one-seater. But really, the decisive new factor was that we know it will not for very much longer meet international design requirements.
Nevertheless, many of the trike drivers to whom we have spoken feel that their vehicles are totally safe. Now, are you saying, in fact, that they're misguided, or are they ignoring the evidence?
No, I know people who have driven tens of thousands of miles in the trike and have driven quite safely.
Trike owners seem to be very worried that when their present vehicles wear out, they're going to be left with an inadequate cash grant and that their mobility will be gone.
That's right. Many people thought that we were about to snatch their vehicles away. Well, of course, we have no such intention. We said, in fact, that we ought to be able to replace existing tricycles up to 1981. After that date, it will become increasingly difficult, not perhaps impossible, but increasingly difficult to replace trikes as they wear out. So we're talking, really, of a phasing out period of at least 5 years.
So really what you're saying now to those people who have trikes and who are worried about whether they're going to be left with a vehicle, say after another 5 years, is don't worry.
Yeah, first of all, that we're not snatching your vehicles away. Indeed, we hope to replace them up to 1981. The trike will be on the road, in many cases, long after that date. We are at the moment taking a very, very deep interest in the whole question of research in this field. We look on home and world markets for a specialised vehicle. We know that the mobility allowance ought to be increased. We've said it will be increased, not just in amount but in value, and that we are determined to make people more mobile. You see, it's rather odd if you're bringing 100,000 extra people in, giving them mobility help for the first time, trebling public expenditure. That's what we're doing. We're not cutting public expenditure on mobility for the disabled. We are in process of trebling public expenditure. So I hope people will see that as a commitment on our part, not to reducing, but to increasing expenditure and mobility help for disabled people.